When a quiet afternoon turns into a cruel twist of fate, a woman is mistaken for her identical twin, and overhears her boyfriend pouring his heart out, not to her but to the other her. It all started with a smile. A simple, familiar smile that led to a mistake she never saw coming. Alara had always known being an identical twin came with confusion, but nothing prepared her for the moment her entire world shifted with one sentence. "I can't stop thinking about you. But I know I shouldn't feel this way about your sister." Her breath caught mid-step. She wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't supposed to hear that. The words echoed, twisting through her mind like broken glass. Had she heard him wrong? Had he mistaken her for Celine again? She hadn't spoken, hadn't moved. Hidden in plain sight behind the corridor wall, she felt like an intruder in her own life. Alara's world had always been one of quiet predictability. Work, dinner, routine. Unlike her twin sister who lived on impulse and flirted with danger. But today, those lines blurred. What did he mean? Did he love Celine? Had this all been a lie, or worse, had Celine betrayed her? This wasn't just a slip of the tongue. It was a glimpse behind the mask, and Alara wasn't ready for the truth she was about to uncover. Alara didn't move. The hallway stretched like a tunnel of silence, each second pressing down heavier than the last. She hadn't come to spy, she'd just come home early. She leaned closer, barely breathing. Her boyfriend, Jonas, sat in the living room, voice low, almost trembling. "I know it's wrong," he said again. "But when I'm with Alara, it's you I see. I don't know how to stop." The confession hit her like a wave crashing into stone. He thinks I'm Celine. But why? What had Celine done? 1,000 memories flooded her mind, missed calls, odd glances, hushed conversations between the two of them. And now it all made sense. She stepped back, heart pounding so hard it felt like it might bruise her ribs. Jonas continued, not knowing who was listening. "She's gentle, safe, but you, Celine, you make me feel alive." Safe, the word sliced through Alara's chest. Was that what she was to him? A life jacket while he longed to drown? She needed answers, but first, she needed to understand the game Celine had been playing. And why? Because one thing was clear. This wasn't a love triangle, it was a setup. Celine had always been the wildfire. Unpredictable, magnetic, dangerous. Growing up, Alara had spent years cleaning up the messes her twin left behind, broken hearts, burned bridges, whispered apologies. But they had rules, they had boundaries. Now Alara wasn't so sure. She sat alone in her bedroom, staring at the mirror they both used. Same face, same hair, same voice, but everything else, completely different. She replayed Jonas's words over and over. They weren't vague, they were deliberate, passionate. Celine hadn't just flirted with Jonas. She had caught him, kept him. Alara's hands trembled. This was more than betrayal. It was identity theft of the soul. When had Celine crossed the line? And why hadn't Alara seen it coming? Was Jonas just a pawn, or worse, was he willingly part of the deception? Alara needed proof, not just her memory, cold, undeniable proof. She opened her laptop and began digging, social media, emails, texts. If there was a secret, it had left footprints, and sure enough it had. It started with a photo, a candid shot on Jonas's private profile, buried deep under albums from months ago. Celine's laugh, her head tilted just enough to suggest intimacy. Jonas's hand resting on her back like he'd done it 1,000 times. The caption read, "Wish this day never ended." It was dated 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks when Jonas claimed to be out of town. Alara's chest constricted. She clicked through more images, each one more damning than the last. Private messages confirmed her worst fears. "Celine, she doesn't suspect a thing, Jonas. I hate lying, but this is the only way to keep you close, Celine. Soon." Soon what? Alara scrolled faster, her vision blurring. The betrayal wasn't just real, it was meticulous, calculated. And Alara had been sleepwalking through it all, but not anymore. She wasn't the passive twin anymore. She was going to confront them both, but not with tears, with strategy. Alara spent the next day planning. Her heartbreak had cooled into something sharper, resolve. She knew Celine, knew her arrogance, her overconfidence, and she would use it. She called Jonas. "Let's meet, I miss you." Her voice was soft, practiced. The voice Celine didn't have. He agreed instantly. Then she messaged Celine, "Need to talk. Meet me at the cafe, alone." It was risky, orchestrating 2 meetings like chess pieces, but it was the only way to force the truth into the open. She dressed carefully, not like herself, but like Celine. Bold lipstick, high heels, her twin's signature perfume. The mirror reflected Celine's style, but Alara's eyes held something else, calculation. If they wanted to play games with identity, she would play too, and she'd win. The cafe buzzed with low chatter when Celine arrived. She walked in like she owned the room, confident, carefree, unaware that the trap had already been set. 5 minutes later, Jonas arrived at Alara's apartment, expecting the woman he loved. But the only woman he'd face was the one he had betrayed, and she wasn't leaving until he confessed everything. Jonas stood in the doorway, his face lit with anticipation. "Alara," he said softly, stepping inside, "I've missed you." But Alara didn't answer right away. She stood in the living room, her back to him, fingers laced together too tightly. The lights were dimmed. She turned slowly, revealing Celine's look from head to toe, bold red lipstick, smoky eyes, a black off-shoulder dress. Jonas's expression flickered, confusion, then longing, then guilt. "You wore it," he whispered. "The dress from our weekend." She tilted her head. "You mean Celine's weekend?" Jonas froze. His breath caught. She stepped closer. "I know everything, Jonas. The messages, the photos, the lies. Tell me, do you love her, or did you just like the thrill of having two women who didn't know they were sharing the same man?" He stumbled backward. "Alara, wait, no more lies," she snapped, the mask slipping just enough for her true voice to emerge. Jonas's face drained of color. "You're Alara, now you see the difference." She waited for an answer. But Jonas stood paralyzed, the reality crashing in, and that was all the truth Alara needed. But she wasn't done yet. Celine still had to face her. Across town, Celine twirled her sunglasses between her fingers, oblivious to the storm brewing. She assumed Alara was reaching out to patch things up, maybe even confess her own guilt. Classic Alara, too soft, too forgiving. Celine lived by different rules. She didn't steal. She simply took what she believed was already hers. And Jonas, he was just another reward for always being the better twin. When she walked into the cafe, she spotted Alara, still in Celine's clothes, seated by the window. But something felt off. The posture, the stillness. Celine narrowed her eyes. "What's with the outfit?" Alara smiled calmly. "You tell me." Celine slid into the seat across from her, already irritated. "If this is about Jonas, let's not play games. We're both adults." Alara leaned forward. "Exactly. So let's talk like adults, like sisters who used to trust each other." Celine's smirk faltered. Alara pressed on. "Why him, Celine? You could have anyone." "Why the one person I loved?" Celine scoffed. "You don't love him. You love the idea of him, but he doesn't see you, Alara. He never did. He saw me." And in that moment, Alara understood. It wasn't love, it was rivalry. The cafe's hum faded into silence as the weight of Celine's words settled between them. Alara stared at her twin, not the face but the soul behind it. The one she had defended, forgiven and believed in. "You always hated sharing," Alara whispered. "Even as kids you had to win, even if it meant cheating." Celine rolled her eyes. "Don't get dramatic. You're acting like I stole your future husband. It was just fun. Fun, yes. You were too boring for him. Too nice. You wouldn't even notice if I took your place every now and then." And he never noticed either. Alara's stomach turned. "Wait, every now and then?" Celine leaned back, arms crossed. "Don't tell me you never suspected. The late calls, the cold kisses, half of those weren't even you." Alara's world tilted. "This wasn't betrayal. This was identity invasion. I trusted you," she said, voice cracking. Celine's laugh was short. "Then you're a fool." And that was it. Alara saw it clearly now. This wasn't just about Jonas. This was about Celine's obsession with being more. But Alara wasn't playing second anymore. This war was just beginning. Alara stood outside the cafe, the evening breeze ruffling the hem of her dress, Celine's dress. The fabric suddenly felt like armor. She wasn't heartbroken anymore. She was awakened. She pulled out her phone and made one final move, sending Jonas and Celine the same message. "Meet me, both of you. No lies. One last time." She chose a neutral location. The old park where she and Celine used to play as children. By the time the sun dipped low behind the trees, both had arrived. Tense, silent, uneasy. Alara didn't wait. "I want to hear it from both of you," she said. "Right now, no games. What was real? What wasn't?" Jonas looked shattered. "I didn't mean for this to happen, but you let it happen," Alara replied coldly. Celine shrugged. "You were too slow, Alara. I took what you didn't protect." Alara shook her head. "No, you took what didn't belong to either of us, because love isn't something you win, it's something you build." They said nothing. And Alara knew it was over, not just with Jonas, but with Celine too, because some betrayals don't heal, they fracture. That night, Alara packed her bags. She wasn't running, she was reclaiming. A new job offer in another city, a new life far from the shadows of her sister and the hollow warmth of a liar's love. She wrote a letter and left it on Celine's doorstep. It read, "I forgive you, but I won't forget. We shared a face, not a soul." She blocked Jonas's number, deleted the photos, took off Celine's dress and put on her favorite hoodie, the one that made her feel like herself. Looking in the mirror, she smiled, not bitterly, not sadly, but triumphantly, because she had faced the lie, walked through the fire and come out the other side. And in the end, the twin who always faded into the background was the one who truly found her voice. Her reflection didn't confuse her anymore. It empowered her. She was Alara, whole, real, and finally free. Days turned into weeks, and Alara's new life began to take shape, quiet, clean, and untouched by deception. The new city offered anonymity, and with it clarity. But trauma doesn't disappear. It lingers, like a shadow behind the glass. One evening she stood in front of the mirror, brushing her hair. Her reflection stared back, calm on the surface, yet beneath it all fragments of doubt still whispered. Had she really escaped it all, or was she just running from the past with a new address? She'd received no messages from Celine or Jonas. Not one, not even an apology, and perhaps that silence was the loudest confession of all. Sometimes Alara imagined seeing them again, at a cafe, in a crowd. Would Jonas pretend not to know her? Would Celine smirk like none of it mattered? These were questions that had no answers. But even as they haunted her, they didn't control her anymore. Alara wasn't broken. She was evolving. She joined a photography group, enrolled in night classes, and found herself smiling at strangers again. Yet each time she passed a mirror, she hesitated, because for the first time in her life, she didn't want to see Celine's face. She wanted to see her own. One crisp morning, as Alara sat in a quiet corner of a bookstore cafe, a man approached her table, mid-30s, soft-spoken, with the tired eyes of someone who'd lived through something. "I hope this isn't weird," he said gently. "But are you Alara?" She stiffened. "Do I know you?" He shook his head. "No, but I knew your sister. A while ago." Alara's heart stuttered. "What do you mean knew? I met her a year ago. She told me her name was Ella. She was magnetic, but she lied about everything. I only found out her real name after she disappeared." He slid a photo across the table, Celine's unmistakable face, arm draped around him, wearing that same careless smile. Alara didn't blink. "Her name is Celine. She's my twin." His eyebrows shot up. "That makes sense." He leaned in. "She destroyed me. I just wanted to understand why, but now I think maybe she doesn't even know why she does what she does." Alara's chest tightened. "Another ghost from Celine's trail. Why tell me?" she asked. "Because I figured, if anyone else knows how it feels to be deceived by her, it's you." He left his card and walked away, and for the first time Alara realized she wasn't the only casualty. A week later, the silence ended. Alara's phone buzzed in the middle of the night. A blocked number, one message. "Do you miss me?" No name, no context. But Alara didn't need it. It was Celine. She stared at the screen, heart racing. Another message followed. "Don't pretend you're happier. You're still me." Alara's blood turned cold. She blocked the number. But the next morning, a new profile followed her on social media. No photo, just a username, @yourreflection. Alara clicked through. Empty feed. One follower, one post, a picture of Alara walking into her new job, taken from across the street. Celine had found her, her stomach twisted with both fear and fury. Celine wasn't done. This wasn't just a sister clinging to the past. It was a predator hunting in plain sight. Alara reported the profile and shut down her socials. But she knew it was only a matter of time before Celine reached out again. And next time, she might not use a screen. She might come in person. So Alara did what she never thought she would. She reached for the card the stranger had given her and dialed. His name was Dorian, and he was more than just another of Celine's ex-lovers. He had been nearly destroyed by her manipulations. When Alara called, he picked up instantly. "You knew she'd reach out, didn't you?" "I did," he said. "She always comes back. When the game's too quiet, she stirs the pieces again." Alara met him at a quiet pier where the fog hung low and the waves whispered secrets. Dorian brought a folder. Inside were names, photos, and messages, evidence of Celine's past conquests, each one more disturbing than the last. "She doesn't just seduce," Dorian said. "She invades, she becomes what you want most, until she decides you're no longer worth keeping." Alara's hands trembled as she flipped through pages. A man who lost his job because of her lies. A woman who lost custody of her child. "I thought I was the only one," Alara murmured. "You were just the one she envied the most," he said. "She's not after your man. She's after your identity." That sentence stopped Alara cold, because deep down she knew it was true. Celine didn't want love, she wanted to replace her, and Alara had one choice left: vanish or confront the mirror head-on. Alara didn't run, not this time. Instead, she crafted a message, a public post on her old social account, knowing Celine would see it. "You win, let's talk, one last time, you know where." She returned to their childhood home, abandoned now, overgrown with ivy, filled with dust and echoes. The place where it all began. She unlocked the door and waited. Hours passed, and then a faint creak. Celine entered, the same confident walk, same predatory gaze. "Alara," she purred. "Still wearing that boring little moral compass?" "I came for answers," Alara said calmly. "But now I see, you don't have any." Celine tilted her head. "You invited me here to insult me? No, to show you, I'm not your mirror anymore." Celine laughed. "You can't exist without me." But Alara stepped forward, inches from her face. "Watch me." The house, the past, the mask, it all fell away. She turned her back on Celine for the first time in her life and walked out. No drama, no tears, just choice. And with every step away from that house, from her twin, from the lies, she wasn't just walking away, she was walking toward herself. Days passed since the confrontation at the old house. Alara expected fallout, rage, guilt, threats. But Celine vanished as quickly as she had appeared. No messages, no sightings, no shadows lurking near windows. It was eerie, almost like she'd never existed. But Alara knew better. Celine was never truly gone. She was a wound that scarred over but never fully healed. And still, something had shifted. For once, Alara had drawn the line, not in fear, but in control. She stood before the HR office of her new job, legal paperwork in hand. She'd made a decision, one few would understand. She was changing her name, not to run, to reclaim. No more confusion at banks, in hospitals, on social media. No more explaining that no, that wasn't me who said that. She would no longer be defined by a face she didn't own alone. She chose a new name, one that belonged to no one else, Leora, meaning light. The name felt foreign on her tongue but right in her soul, and when the paperwork was stamped and official, she didn't cry, she smiled, because for the first time her name was hers, not Celine's, not a twin's, hers. With her new identity, Leora embraced change like a long-lost friend. She moved into a small studio apartment overlooking the hills, sparse, quiet, safe. But one evening while unpacking, she found an old box she hadn't touched since the move. Inside, photos of birthdays, holidays, childhood laughter. Two girls indistinguishable in face but worlds apart in spirit. She paused at one in particular, both girls on their bicycles, grinning, scraped knees and tangled hair. She didn't throw it away, she placed it in a drawer. Because forgetting wasn't healing, remembering without pain, that was. Later that night, a letter slipped under her door, no name, just one line written in familiar cursive. You're stronger than I thought, goodbye. No threats, no cruelty, just an ending, or maybe a beginning. Leora exhaled deeply. She'd feared that Celine would never let go, but maybe in her own twisted way, Celine understood, or maybe she found a new mirror to crack. Either way, it was over. For Leora, the past wasn't a prison anymore. It was a lesson, and she was finally free to live the rest of her story, her way. The sun spilled golden light through the window as Leora stepped into the art gallery. Months ago, she had joined the photography group for distraction. Now her own work was being displayed, snapshots of movement, emotion, stillness. A curator approached. You've captured something rare. Intimacy without intrusion, Leora smiled. That's what I always longed for. She glanced at one particular photo, a mirror fractured into a dozen pieces, each reflecting a different part of a woman's face. It was titled, Not Her. Visitors lingered at that one the longest. A young woman asked, Is this self-portrait about identity? Leora nodded. Yes, about losing it, and finding it again. People didn't ask if she had a twin. They didn't ask if her real name was something else. They just saw her, as her, not as a shadow, not as an echo, as the artist, the woman who survived. That night she walked home beneath a quiet sky, stars peeking through clouds, and for the first time in years her smile wasn't careful, it was real. Months later, as winter crept into the city, her phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. She almost ignored it, until curiosity won. Hello, a pause, then a voice. This is Officer Grant. I'm calling regarding a missing person. Leora's stomach dropped. Celine, the officer continued. She's been reported missing. You were her closest family listed. Leora closed her eyes. How long? 3 weeks, no signs, no known travel plans. We found her belongings abandoned in a hotel room. Leora's heart pounded, not with panic, but something strange, regret, pity. She couldn't tell. I haven't spoken to her since she sent a goodbye letter. We just need to know if she reached out. Any information helps. Leora gave what she could. But the call stayed with her long after it ended. Was this Celine's final game, another manipulation, or had she really disappeared for good this time? Leora didn't know. And perhaps she didn't want to. Some ghosts are meant to be left unchased. She lit a candle that night, not for grief but for closure, and then she let it burn. Leora now lived a life free of double shadows. Her mornings began with strong coffee and sunrise walks. She taught photography to children on weekends, often telling them, what you see isn't always the whole story, but it's still yours. Sometimes she'd catch her reflection in shop windows and smile. Not because she saw beauty, but because she saw only herself. She didn't need Celine's validation. She didn't need Jonas's affection. She didn't need to be someone else to feel whole. She had rewritten her ending, and with it her identity. People still asked about her name sometimes. Leora, that's unique. Is it your birth name? And she would answer softly. No, but it's the name I chose. Because being born into a story didn't mean you had to stay there. You could walk away from the script, and write your own, one that no one could steal, no one could fake, and no one could take. her story wasn't about a twin anymore. It was about truth, about survival, and about light. If this story pulled you in, moved you, or made you think about identity and love in a new way, don't forget to subscribe for more stories that twist the truth and pull at your heart. Because in the mirror of every life, there's always more than one reflection.